Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Saturday, February 28th. This is episode 98 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Thank you as always for joining us. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of the support as always here on the channel. Another week, another episode, last episode of February. We are already almost into March, last day of February here today, the 28th. March rolling around here very shortly. Next week will be really close to free agency starting up, getting closer and closer to the NFL draft. So the offseason continues to roll on. We've had a lot of NFL Combine news come out this week, a lot of rumors from the NFL Combine come out this week. So we'll dive into all of that today. A trade as well come out from the NFL Combine. And we also had a head coach sleeping. I don't know who that head coach was. I think we just keep his name under the I don't know who he was, but head coach sleeping. We got it all at the NFL Combine. DiMari, how's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It is the back end of Combine week, and a lot of usually comes with this. And then expect a coach sleeping, who this guy's name we won't say, but you had a coach sleeping. And, it's Combine time when you got false promises from GMs, false promises from coaches, players getting circulated in trade news. All those type of things let you know where, hey, we're back. We're kind of getting to the swing of it again. Of course, some franchise tags has gone down. And this is the time where we all watch the Combine. We see guys in shorts performing. We start to over-evaluate. And now we're doing, jersey swaps for everyone we want our team to land. So it's been a great week so far from the Combine. So I'm kind of glad that we're getting back to the swing of it.
Yeah, it's Combine week when you see the charts of guys' measurables and then you see them compare to other players. I've seen some David Bailey, Von Miller comparisons in terms of the measurables. I saw there was one other one I saw. I've seen a ton of them, but two that I remembered off the top of my head. As some of them like to call it, the underwear Olympics, right? It's a good time for guys to skyrocket their draft stock based off of just pure Sonny Styles. That was the other one. He had a really impressive week based off of, all the measurables and the run, the 40s and all that, the 10-yard splits, all that kind of stuff. Without actually looking at the tape and diving into these guys, the NFL Combine can just raise draft stocks completely. So we've seen a lot of that this week, but as always at the NFL Combine, you get a lot of rumors. GMs, coaches start to talk to each other. You start to hear some draft conversations. You start to hear draft rumors. So a lot of stuff always comes out from this week in Indianapolis, and we'll dive into a lot of that. We also got a trade with the New York Jets and Tennessee Titans, so we'll dive into that too, the first big notable trade of the offseason up to this point. But we'll start with Anthony Richardson and the Indianapolis Colts and the Minnesota Vikings and Anthony Richardson's future and what's next for him, as the Colts gave him permission to seek a trade. So it feels like, and I don't think this is much of a surprise, but his days in Indy are numbered. Before we get into landing spots, what's next for him as a player, your thoughts on the Anthony Richardson seeking a trade, that news in itself?
This is prime example of we have to stop the college hype. We have to, and I know I say this every single time we talk about Anthony Richardson, and I'm going to say it again. We have to stop with the college hype. We have to stop reaching for players in the draft. And we have to stop drafting guys based off of what we hope they can develop into instead of what they are in that current moment. And this is exactly why I think that's important. I mean, this is a guy you draft with the 4th overall pick that has the raw athleticism. Like, you've seen it at Florida, but there's other things on tape that you saw where you're like, this guy's not ready to be a starting quarterback. But just from the athletic standpoint of it, you're seeing it on tape in college. You take him with the 4th pick, and you say, okay, we can gel this guy into our franchise quarterback. Fast forward a few years later, now he's not even going to be on the roster potentially. And I think that just speaks volumes to the fail. Like, it's not necessarily on both ends of it. And I'm not saying his career's over, obviously. Like, he's going to seek a trade. He's going to go somewhere. He's going to be a backup, of course. I don't think he's going to get a starting job anywhere. But it just kind of shows you, like, we have to stop reaching. At some point, or we need to find our ways to really develop our guys. I don't think Anthony Richardson was ready to be a starter when he first came to the league. He needed a few years to sit behind a veteran, learn some type of things. And I think ultimately the fact that he was kind of thrown into the fire with so much expectation and the world on his shoulders of coach football when he first stepped in, it led to, this departure.
Yeah, I agree. I'm right there with you in terms of the draft type and draft type with all of these guys, especially Anthony Richardson. You saw him at Florida, the athleticism, the traits there. Totally agree with you. That stuff popped off the charts. I never loved him coming out of Florida as the fourth overall pick that high. We talked about it. We've talked about it a ton, but the completion percentage, there was some bad throws. There was inaccuracy. There was serious concerns there at Florida that you have now seen at the NFL level, where even when he's had moments, because there's been the occasional flash with Anthony Richardson where he's had moments. Heck, you go back and look at his first season, you go to 2023, there was some moments there. There was some positives to take away, but he was hurt. He got hurt twice, and then he was done for the year. He only ended up playing in 4 games. But in the couple games that he played in, the 2 big starts that people always remember are the Jaguars one, where even though they lost that game, he went out, had over 200 yards passing, had a touchdown, and then the Rams game where they also lost, but he had a really good game. In terms of completion percentage, I believe he was under 50% that game. But as a whole, he went out 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. Rushing, you saw some really good things. He had, I think, 4 rushing touchdowns that season in 2023 in the couple of starts he made before the injury where he wasn't really taking care of his body, wasn't taking smart hits. And just since that point, it's been ugly. The completion percentage is still not there. You haven't seen that at all. And that's where I'm right there with you. I totally agree in the sentiment of he needs to sit and learn. He needs to go to a place with a good offensive mind and sit, learn, watch, and just absorb. Because to say Anthony Richardson, like you said, and I agree, to say his career is over, that's premature. We just saw Sam Darnold win a Super Bowl. You've seen what's happened with Baker Mayfield. To a lesser extent, and I know this is a rough example after what took place last season, but Geno Smith resurrected his career in Seattle for a few years. We have seen now more than ever quarterbacks that struggle out of the gate find their footing a couple years later. Richardson more falls along the Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold timeline because he's entering year 4, and Darnold, right, was 3 years done with the Jets. Baker was, 4 years done with the Browns, and then goes to, had the moments with the Panthers and the Rams, and it ends up going to Tampa, and we all know what's happened since. He's found a home there. I think Anthony Richardson in the right spot. It's funny because I'll kind of toss it back over to you, because I feel Anthony Richardson in the right situation with the right coaching, with the right team, just the right overall situation. I think he can get his career on track. I do believe he has the athletic traits. They're all there. It's just playing quarterback and being competent at quarterback. That's like the next step for Anthony Richardson to take. Do you tend to agree with that in terms of his future? Where I've been a big Anthony Richardson downer. I've never believed in him coming out of college, never really believed in him throughout his NFL career. Not that many people have during his NFL career, because he hasn't really shown you much of a reason to believe in him in the times he's been out there in his 3 seasons in Indy. Do you feel right situation he can get back on track?
Yeah, 100%. This is where the offensive-minded quarterback guru, this is where he kind of needs to land at. So, this is where he can benefit from a Kevin O'Connell, Kevin Stefanski, Sean McVay, a Kyle Shanahan, just one of those guys that have been known with the cycle of quarterbacks. They bring those guys in. Shanahan wants to be, probably the best example of it, not necessarily saying he goes to San Francisco, but you just look at the Mac Jones, the Sam Darnold, the Jimmy G, Brock Purdy right now, like all those guys in his system that he's kind of brought in, helped reshape into a quarterback, and they went on to do whatever it is they do, or they make themselves very good, reliable backups. So I feel like a spot like that where there's no pressure on him, there's no expectation. Again, also he needs to have a starting vet in front of him to sit back and learn from. So those 2 factors where, a year, I'll probably say 2 years. I won't say a year, probably say 2 years, 2.5, where he can just sit and learn from somebody in front of him, but also learn from a quarterback that's going to further help shape his career. I honestly think, yeah, we could see another resurgence, and you mentioned it perfectly. It kind of felt like a while back, let's say 6 to 8 years ago. I'm just going to throw out a timeline here. It kind of felt like if you did 3 years as a quarterback with the team and you were done, you're just done. Like, you're probably going to be a career journeyman. You're going to be a backup. You eventually phase out of the league. But yes, with the Sam Darnolds, with the Baker Mayfields, Geno Smith is a perfect example, even though he hasn't played well. But thank you for bringing up Geno. Bryce Young, who is a shorter time frame of it, but we've also seen it from him where these guys face some adversity and they get to the right situation, or they bring in the right coach, whatever the case is, and we see them bounce back and eventually form into what we thought they would be coming out of the draft. Again, this guy, talking about Anthony Richardson, he's 23 years old. Like, he's still fairly young. He's talented. We all know he's talented. It's just little tweaks here and there, decision making, those little things that I think can turn, like, flip a switch, and he can be a very good quarterback in the league.
Yeah, definitely. And I would even throw, and these are two different names, I guess, because they had some success in their first spot, but ultimately it got stale fast and things fizzled out. Two examples for the two different sides of it. Like Jared Goff, I would also kind of throw another example of found a new home and had success. Now, people often forget he took the Rams to a Super Bowl. They lost the Super Bowl, but he took them to a Super Bowl. There was some big moments that he had with the Rams, but it got stale. It got old. They clearly had a ceiling with him, and that was a very win-win trade, I still think, because even though Goff hasn't gotten the Lions over the top, that's a team that he's been able to – they've gotten back to relevancy the last couple of years. I know last year was tough, but Jared Goff in Detroit's had a ton of success. He's playing a lot better than he did with the Rams, and we know the Matthew Stafford situation. And I would throw one other that I guess doesn't fit, but Wentz kind of falls under the category of didn't work out and never really worked out, because he had the really good year where they won the Super Bowl. We all know he tore his ACL, Nick Foles, that whole thing. After that, he never got back to the player he was. And then after Philly, the Indianapolis experiment was a disaster. They collapsed, and now he's just kind of been a backup journeyman. So two different examples, but you have your Jared Goffs, you have your Genos, you have your Bakers, you have your, Darnolds. Darnold being the biggest one of them all now because he's got the Super Bowl to his name. And that's how I feel with Anthony Richardson. Is he going to win a Super Bowl? Is he going to go on and be elite? Who knows? But I do have this feeling about him that to just count him off right now would be a little premature, especially after where we are now. And you're spot on. We see this now more than ever. Even Bryce Young's a good example where the benching actually helped him. Post benching, he worked out. So back then, a couple years, not even, I want to say back then, like we're talking so long ago, but there was a time where 3 years were up, you were traded. Nobody ever remembers you. Like, you're just not a good player. And there's still examples of guys that get traded and aren't good in their next spots. But I feel like now more than ever, there is better examples for the Anthony Richardsons to believe that they can get back on track. Now, we throw the Vikings in. They've got some interest in Richardson. Your thoughts on the Vikings being a landing spot? I like the idea of the Kevin O'Connell, Anthony Richardson situation, but if he goes to Minnesota, there's a chance he's starting. Would you tend to agree? What are your thoughts on the Vikings as a possibility?
I like it, but I don't like it at the same time. I like it for the point of Richardson, again, going to a organization where they have a coach that is known, well for dealing with quarterbacks, successful quarterbacks. But then again, he doesn't have a mentor. J.J. McCarthy's not mentoring him. So you don't have that veteran to listen to. And there's been speculation, maybe Kirk Cousins. There's been some other things as well. So let's say they bring in a guy or two. For now that he doesn't have that. And for the Vikings side of it, I kind of hate it. And we talked about this, I think it was last episode or episode before that. It just feels like anytime the Vikings are in conversation and a quarterback circulates, and we just remember Sam Darnold just won the Super Bowl last month, it just looks, or early this month, it just looks so bad for Minnesota. And I'm not going to go over the whole rant of it again, but it feels like they've set their organization back 2 to 3 years with moving on from Darnold, keeping JJ. And honestly, yes, JJ's been hurt, but I don't think they're trying to bring in a replacement or whatever you want to call this next guy over because JJ's been hurt. It's because he's not good. So it just looks so much worse on Minnesota to bring in yet another young guy that hasn't worked out and basically give him the keys, because I do agree with you. I think he might. There's a good chance he's going to start, or at least they're going to have a competition. That job is not JJ's right now. So if Anthony Richardson starts, you give the keys to yet another guy who is unproven, who also has an injury history. Like if you're Minnesota, it just looks so bad if you go that direction. But for the sake of Richardson getting a fresh start with a good coach, I like it.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of what you said there is spot on. From the Minnesota perspective, a quarterback room of J.J. McCarthy, Anthony Richardson to start the season there's no other way to slice it. That's terrible. And it's honestly bad for both players because there's no mentor in that room. There's no learning being done in that room from a veteran quarterback standpoint. It's honestly worst case scenario. Also, just forget the Viking side of things. From a J.J. McCarthy, Anthony Richardson side of things, I think that's worst case scenario for those two guys if they're potentially competing for the starting job as opposed to a Kirk Cousins, even a Derek Carr coming in and being, hey, you're the starter. Whether or not Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr appeal to you as quarterbacks, the fact of the matter is they're proven veterans that can come in, start day one, get a handle of the offense, specifically Kirk Cousins because he played under Kevin O'Connell and had a lot of success with Minnesota. Is he the same Kirk Cousins? No, but he can come in and be a solid stopgap quarterback while J.J. McCarthy, Anthony Richardson sit, learn, and kind of compete behind him too because they're both in similar situations. J.J. McCarthy was terrible last year. Anthony Richardson has been terrible in his time with the Colts. Both injury prone as well. A lot of people forget that J.J. McCarthy missed his entire rookie year. I do think, kind of on a side note, I think a lot of people think that last year was J.J. McCarthy's like rookie year. People forget that he missed his entire first season. I like the possibility of Richardson under Kevin O'Connell. And I'll throw this out there too. I don't think Richardson is in the spot, nor J.J. McCarthy for that matter. I could be wrong. I don't think he's in the position, though, to be fighting for a starting job this year. He needs to sit and just learn for a year, whether that's behind a Derek Carr, whether that's behind a Kirk Cousins. To me, Kirk Cousins playing or Anthony Richardson playing in week one, I don't think that's best for him. In my opinion, I think he's better off waiting. Would you tend to agree with that? Just sitting for this season and then next year, let's say Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins for a year, and then the year after, Richardson is the guy or J.J. McCarthy or however they want to play it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you're Minnesota, I think regardless of who you roll out there week one, Carr, Cousins, McCarthy, Richardson, you're not winning the division. You're not making the playoffs. So there's no point of throwing a guy out there to kind of evaluate what he has with no shot of winning. You might as well bring in, like you're saying, a stopgap type of QB and just let one of those two learn. And 2027, now let's try to go be competitive.
Yep, I agree. And I'll throw another couple teams out here just that I kind of wrote down. I was thinking of Green Bay. He could be an option there, right? Malik Willis, free agent. He can kind of be the new Malik Willis in a way where he sits and learns under Matt LaFleur behind Jordan Love. I would also San Fran would be a perfect example in this situation, but with Mac Jones as the two, and I don't think Mac Jones personally is going to get traded. I think the Niners would be dumb to trade him. He is the perfect insurance policy behind Brock Purdy, who has proven that he gets hurt and he's going to miss time. But San Fran would be like an ideal destination in that sense of, that he would be sitting and learning and stuff. I would say about San Fran, Richardson, if they went out and grabbed him and as a third string, that would almost be the Sam Darnold path where he doesn't even have to worry about playing. He could just hold the clipboard for a year. I don't see it happening. I think it's unrealistic. I would say Green Bay, Minnesota, one of these teams that actually needs another quarterback to their room is more realistic than San Fran. But San Fran did do a Darnold where, they had him in and stuff. I think he was the third string. I believe Darnold was. He could have, maybe he was the backup. I forget. I forget who at the time, off the top of my head, if Jimmy G was still there or not in 2023. I could be wrong, but either way, San Fran, the Rams could be a team. McVay, just going down the list of teams with backups that, Jimmy G is going to be a free agent. Stetson Bennett, I think, is the only other quarterback on that roster other than Stafford, of course. The Rams, I think, is very intriguing because you have Stafford for this year. Richardson sits. In a perfect world, can Richardson be like this successor next season? That might be stretching it a bit, but you never know. Again, this is basing off of if Anthony Richardson is able to have a career resurgence. I think the Rams are a very intriguing destination for that reason of Stafford plays one more year. He learns under Stafford and McVay, and then in 2027, you're rolling Richardson out there. Maybe you bring in another arm, whatever, maybe draft somebody and you have a competition. And maybe Richardson could have a long career there. That's a little bit stretching it a bit, but another place. Any other names or teams, I should say? The Jets would be awful.
Yeah.
I just want to put this out there. The Jets, to me, I understand the appeal, but Anthony Richardson can't come in and be your day one starter. We talk about Richardson. Fine. What's best for Anthony Richardson would not be the New York Jets.
Is there news circulating that the Jets should trade for him?
No, it's
or
just
is this the fan base talking?
It's just the Jets are in the market for a quarterback, and anybody that comes available, people are gonna link. I saw a guy on NFL Network the other day in an article I read that said the New York Jets would be a good fit for Anthony Richardson. It's not happening, but it's similar to the Bills. Any receiver that becomes available, Bills. With the Jets being in the quarterback market, I have probably rattled off 30 names in the last month of different quarterbacks. From college to trade to free agents that could potentially play for the Jets. Now, again, I just was ruling that out. I don't see it happening. Nor does it make sense for either side, really.
Yeah, if I'm the Jets, I'm not doing that either. That's another Justin Fields situation,
and that's why
back in that predicament.
Yeah, and that's why I say the same thing with Malik Willis. I don't see Malik Willis with the Jets being a match either. Too much money, and it's very similar to Justin Fields. You're banking on 6 starts of Malik Willis. Yeah. Fields, you're just banking on pure upside. So I agree. Any other teams?
There's one more, and I know it's quite ridiculous. What about Dallas? I mean, right now there's no backup. There is Joe Milton. I have no faith in Joe Milton. If Dak Prescott were to go down again, there's no faith in it. I just think that guy, not necessarily is a lost cause, but I don't think he ever steps in as a backup quarterback that you can trust to, step in if your QB goes down. So we're talking about Dak is getting a little older, and it kind of makes sense to me because of the age, which Dallas will never do this. This is not happening. Just throwing out a spot. Dak is kind of getting up there in age, even though he is playing some of his better football. It's almost like he has hit his prime now, and his 20s wasn't his prime. So he's playing some of the best football he's played in his career. But then again, life comes at you fast. So, Dak could suffer another injury that sets him back for quite some time, or maybe get to the point where they don't win and him and the organization go separate ways. You can't rely on Joe Milton. And again, I know that one's a long shot, but we are talking about a quarterback that he can learn from, somewhere where he would sit for maybe 2 seasons, 2 to 3. I think that's what he needs. Because even then, 3 seasons, we're talking about 26, you're just in the prime of your career. Yep. Talking about 26 for him, and Scotty has proved that he can run an offense. He has proved, at least in this 1 year with Dak, and I know Dak was seasoned. It's not like he, came into a new situation with a rookie quarterback or an unproven guy. Dak is a very seasoned vet. So, benefit of the doubt for that. But he has proved, hey, in my 1 year, I work well with quarterbacks. I mean, the team was second in offense and second in passing yards. He can work with the QB. He can get success out of the QB. And I know there's weapons. There's also weapons for Anthony Richardson, considering how long those guys are there. That's not a crazy spot. I don't see it happening. I like the Rams probably more than any spot, if we're being honest. But that's just one to just throw out.
Yeah. No, that's a good. It's kind of Dallas and the Rams, I guess, are kind of similar in terms of like he would maybe be the successor, right?
Yep.
Post Dak, post Stafford, whatever happens in Dallas. Will Grier, Cowboys legend.
I
feel like he's had 50 different stints with the Cowboys.
That's what it feels like. It feels like it's always he gets released or he's dropped to the practice squad and he's called back up. He's no longer on the team. That's Will Grier's career for you.
Yeah. Preseason legend.
He did ball in the preseason.
Yes.
Thought we had something special.
He is the prime camp arm, just eating up all the reps. Anyway, that's the Anthony Richardson stuff. We'll see what happens, how it all plays out. We move on now to some receiver talk and the Eagles. Shocker. We got Eagles drama, Eagles A.J. Brown decision to come soon. We've got Eagles trading A.J. Brown discussion. It's funny. I think out of all the topics, A.J. Brown's up there too. I think in terms of topics most talked about with the Bills receivers, A.J. Brown, Pittsburgh Steelers. They're up there in terms of just A.J. Brown making headlines again, making news. Or I shouldn't say A.J. Brown himself, but the Eagles and A.J. Brown in the news again. What are your thoughts on the latest updates with A.J. Brown? Does a trade go down? I did not mean to rhyme, but it rhymed.
I'm over it. I feel like this has been 3 years now.
Yeah. It feels like ever since he went to Philly, honestly.
Basically, it's kind of like we're living life in almost a simulation. A.J. Brown is there. He has a few good games. He has a few bad games. He doesn't want to be there. Headlines are there. He's reading books. He's doing whatever the case is. Oh, no, I love it here. I love my quarterback. We're all right. Like, it doesn't matter. 3 more games, they force-feed him the ball, and he has 17 targets in 2 games, and everything's good again, and then it goes right back to, well, he does absolutely nothing. Get rid of him. I'm over it. Get rid of him, and not necessarily because of him as the root of the problem. I also think that course just not winning. I don't think we're going to see them get back. I think that time is over with. They got the one that they got. I think it's time to move on from him and kind of just rely on Devontae Smith. And I'm trying to approach this segment without bashing Jalen Hurts, but there's a lot of factors that's driving A.J. Brown out of Philly, and I think it's time for him to go. That is very tough to do.
Yeah.
But I think it's time for him to go.
No, I agree. I think it's just reached a stalemate, a stale point where it's just both sides are kind of done with each other, if that makes sense. I think A.J. Brown's done with Philly, and I think to a certain extent Philly's probably done with A.J. Brown. Can I address, though, the elephant in the room? Because, look, and I don't want to come across as defending A.J. Brown or defending Jalen Hurts. But A.J. Brown, the guy cried for the football all year, begging for the football. I'm not being thrown the ball enough. You mentioned it. Towards the end of the season, they force-fed him targets. Just got over 1,000 yards, right? Then you get a happy A.J. Brown. Yeah, I'm over 1,000 yards again. You're force-feeding me targets. All of this stuff. Over 70 catches. All of that. Then you go to the playoff game against the Niners. A big play, and he dropped 2 passes. But the big one, I believe, was on that 3rd down. Was a good throw from Jalen Hurts, and he dropped it. So this whole situation with A.J. Brown, I think a lot of people look at it and just look at the Eagles and just say, oh, they're not using a wide receiver 1 enough. They're not doing this, not doing that. But A.J. Brown's also had his moments of when he's been targeted, he's had opportunities to make plays. He hasn't made them. I want to put that out there too. And I don't want to come across as a hater on AJ Brown. Personally, I think that I maybe it's just I just hate the Eagles, this whole situation. They're complaining. You get Eagles fans again. Oh, look at us. Oh, the pain. It's not like you just won a Super Bowl, whatever, a year ago. Oh, we got a distraught number one receiver. We're going to trade him. Our quarterback stinks. All this stuff. I'd beg to have 2 Super Bowls in the last decade. I'd beg for it. 3 Super Bowl appearances, 2 Super Bowl wins, please. I'd love to have the AJ Brown problem right now. My coach is sleeping at the combine. That's the difference. But in terms of AJ Brown, like it's just reached a stalemate. Would you agree? Like I just think a lot of people look at the AJ Brown situation, and believe me, Jalen Hurts, in a lot of ways, he's not without AJ Brown, without everybody around him. You saw without Kellen Moore, this offense was a shell of itself. This offense was a disaster with Nick Sirianni leading the way and Kellen Moore leaving, and Jalen Hurts has a different offensive coordinator every single year and all that stuff. And I do think Jalen Hurts is more of a product of the players around him. I think if you put Jalen Hurts on whatever, you put Jalen Hurts on the Bills, they're not making the playoffs in terms of the talent around him. Would you agree? Is that not to get into the Jalen Hurts discussion, because I know you also said that you don't want to get into the Jalen Hurts discussion, but right, you feel Jalen Hurts is more of a product of what's around him and the coaching?
Is the grass green? I mean,
Yeah,
absolutely. If we're being so honest, and this is what kills me about Philly fans, and it frustrates me to my core. We sit here and we act like Jalen Hurts was brought into, or he's playing around a group of guys that they called up from the UFL.
The Bills receiving core,
the best offensive line in football. That's what they
Brandon
like.
Cooks, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, the corpse of Josh Palmer. Yeah.
Our receivers. Yeah, you have 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers. You have a very good tight end who I believe has been a Pro Bowler at some point in his career. You have
very
Saquon
consistent
Barkley,
tight end.
the best offensive line. The only thing you don't have is a wide receiver 3. Okay, Dallas Goedert makes up for that as your wide receiver 3 / tight end, whatever the case is. And guess what? You know whose fault that is? You don't have wide receiver 3. Your coaching staff, your player development, the player personnel. That's who it is. But you are set for success with the team that you have, and not going to take it away from him. He has succeeded. I am going to say that. But now this is where I'm going to be a little bit of playing both sides of it. A lot of that success doesn't stem from Jalen Hurts. A lot of that success stems from how good the run game is and how good the players are around him with the ball in their hands. And I've said this before. You've heard me say this multiple times. I'm going to say it again. Jalen Hurts is not the type of quarterback. I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback. He's not the type of quarterback where you can rely to drop back and throw the ball 32 to 35 times and go out there and win you a football game. Yeah. That is not the case. And yes, Philly fans, he's done it before. Yeah, I hope so. He's an NFL quarterback. I hope there's going to be a few games he can go out there, sling it around, and they win games. But if you are a defensive coordinator going into a game, you're not worried about Jalen Hurts beating you throwing the ball 35 times. That's just the truth of it. So I am 100% right there with you, where if he had the receiving core that Buffalo has, even Kansas City, if he had what Kansas City had,
even with Kelsey,
very successful.
Yeah,
exactly.
This version of Kelsey and their receiving core, they would stink. I mean, heck, Mahomes struggled.
Yes.
Right. So honestly, you could probably throw a lot of quarterbacks out there that would stink, not just Hurts. Yeah. With what the KC was going through. Same thing with the Bills. I agree. It Hurts is, and that's where a lot of the AJ Brown frustration stems from. A lot of it too this year has to go to the coaching. No Kellen Moore. Kevin Patullo was a disaster. I mean, so much so where they were TP in the guy's house. Now, that's a little bit far, little too far. Are we surprised from Philly? No, that their fans did that. I'm not surprised. They're the most classless fan base in the NFL. But that was the state of it. But do you agree though? Like AJ Brown, I don't know. He's a diva. Can I say that he's a diva? He's like, look. And we talked about this, I think, a year ago. I remember we did an episode on wide receivers and why they get labeled as divas and how their position, their pay, their success in the NFL, their life in the NFL it's the only position where they have to rely on somebody else. Right? They have to rely on a good quarterback to get them the football, look at them and throw them the football, target them. All these other positions, they control their things. Like running back, they obviously don't get controlled when the run plays are called, but it's the handoff is easy to execute. Like any other position, offensive line, defensive line, any other position, it's your job, yourself. Wide receiver is the only position where you got to rely on somebody else. So I get the whole guys being frustrated, but there was also moments here where AJ Brown was just, I mean, the guy was targeted 121 times this year. He's not like the guy. And I know they shoved a bunch of targets towards the end of the season, but there's a lot of, that was more than last season. I don't know. He's just such a diva. He's just, and to be honest, he to me does not pop off the charts. We talked about this last week with George Pickens. You asked me to compare AJ Brown to George Pickens. I'm taking George Pickens. AJ Brown versus whoever. Let me look at the top wide receiver contracts because I'm not going to get it off the top of my head dome.
While you find that, here's the thing I can't say. I'm right there with you where AJ Brown had games where he didn't show up. He was given the targets. He didn't he wasn't AJ Brown. But I see the other frustrating side of it where I've watched Philly games where they're on the 3-yard line and AJ Brown is single coverage on the wide side of the field, and instead of throwing them the slant, throwing the back shoulder fade, whatever the case is, we're throwing shuffle passes to Dallas Goedert. Like, what are we doing? Yeah. We're like, it's things like that where I understand the frustration, because if you're one of those guys and you are an AJ Brown, if I have a mixed match, give me the ball. And we're not saying every time we get down there, but there's no reason why, and this might have been the Giants game I'm specifically thinking about, why he is one-on-one with just him and the DB on the island, and we're throwing shuffle passes to Dallas Goedert in the red zone, and I think they failed to score. I think they had to settle for 3. But those type of things. On third down, I'm in one-on-one coverage. Why am I not getting the ball? Or even if it's not necessarily why am I not getting the ball, why are the plays not being drawn up for me? That could also be the frustration, because yes, you might be one-on-one at the moment. They might drop a safety down on you. That takes away whatever look the offense is hoping to get. Certain coverages, certain things will alter why he might not get the ball, but at least draw something up for me. At the end of the day, you paid me all this money to come in and be the guy, to be the veteran, the voice in the locker room, whatever the case is, the captain, and clutch situations, you don't draw plays for me. We're running plays to Dallas Goedert, and I know that sounds from a selfish standpoint because you're not the only one on the field. And this obviously isn't things AJ Brown has said, but just from a spectator, you're kind of just like, in certain situations, I should be getting the ball. Certain plays should be drawn up for me because I am that type of impactful player, so I get it.
No, yeah, I 100% agree. There are definitely moments where the play calling's been terrible. There's bad throws from Jalen Hurts. The play calling this year was a big issue with Philly. There were some games where 100% it felt like he wasn't even a part of the game plan. I look back at that Green Bay game. That game was a disaster. Now, they won the game, but they barely threw him the ball. They didn't even look his way. And Jalen Hurts struggled and the entire team struggled. I think that was that 10-7 game on Monday night. That game was a disaster. But I also look at Tampa too, the Tampa game. He was targeted, I think, 9 or 10 times. He came away with 2 catches. There were some times this year where A.J. Brown wasn't finishing routes. He was, he was kind of lazy at times. Like, the thing I'm just saying is I think there's both sides to it. There is certainly the Eagles, and that's definitely probably the greater part of it. But I also don't think that A.J. Brown is this elite receiver, in my opinion, that people make him out to be. And maybe I'm too much of a prisoner of the moment and just what took place last season, but I'm sorry. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, all guys that I think are better than him. Just looking through the list, I'd throw Amon-Ra St. Brown ahead of him. Maybe
So
I'm
you're
crazy,
missing. So
but
you're missing one.
yeah,
You're missing
Amon-Ra
that
St.
guy in
Brown.
Detroit because he's up
I
there.
I would throw ahead of him.
Yeah.
Like those. That's what 6 names I just labeled that I would put ahead of him. It's.
Do we? I don't think we even mentioned JSN and Puka.
JSN, yes, JSN. Well, yeah, my bad, because I was just looking at the contract wise, because we talked about this last week about would you give Pickens $30 million, right? That was the conversation. Yeah. So my bad. JSN better. I'm probably missing some. I gotta stop looking at the contracts. I just gotta start thinking. JSN better. Go. Is there others?
Puka's better.
Puka's better.
Hot take. Give me Devontae Adams at this current moment.
Yes.
I will take Devontae Adams over AJ Brown.
100%. That's a good one. We mentioned Amon-Ra St. Brown. We already mentioned Jefferson. Just going through the divisions. It's not crazy. It's not crazy to say that AJ Brown, and maybe this is going to come across as crazy hate towards his direction. And I know he tore his ACL, but the way he looked his rookie year, you probably know where I'm going. Malik Neighbors I'm taking Malik Neighbors over AJ Brown. Now, that puts the point. AJ Brown's not even a top 3 receiver in his own division because you're taking CeeDee Lamb, Pickens, and Neighbors over him. So that's all I'm saying. Just in my opinion, when you look at the whole broad scope of it, AJ Brown is, I don't know. I think he puts himself on a little bit of a higher pedestal than he actually is. That's just me. Maybe I'm coming across as a hater, but I just think people act like AJ Brown's this top tier, top 5 elite receiver, and we just named 9 or 10 guys that are better than him. No, he's not even top 10. Like I just think we have to scale back on the AJ Brown's elite. I've already seen all this stuff of possible trade destinations for him. I don't know. Look, the Eagles, the way the offense was, Jalen Hurts, there's obviously issues there, but there was also a lot of things too with AJ Brown that I didn't love this year, including in the biggest moment of the game against the Niners. You have a chance to go down and score and take the lead. He dropped the big pass on 3rd down. Like, you can't beg for the football. You can't complain. You can't throw a temper tantrum. You can't, not talk to the media, because that's another thing he'll do as well. He'll deny the media. People, they won't be able to talk to him. Like, you can't do all that, read books on sideline, and then blame Jalen Hurts, all this stuff, and then turn around and in the biggest moment of the game, the reason you're there, you drop a pass on 3rd down on a good thrown ball on a play that you should make. That's all. That's just my point to it. But you can go ahead. I know I probably cut you off a bit.
Oh, no. I'm just basically just piggybacking off what you're saying. Like, hey, he's not a game-changing receiver. Like, he has great games. I know stats aren't everything, but if you go look at his stats, like, yeah, this guy can give you 1,000 yards every year, but he's not popping off for 1,500, 1,600. I think he's had 1,400 most, if I'm correct, but he's not popping off. Even the touchdowns, we're not even in double-digit touchdowns. I think he's had 11 in the most in his career, which I believe was the same year he had 1,400 yards. So he's not really popping off the charts as far as stats. I really don't think he's that much of a game changer, if we're being honest. He's going to have some very good games. He's going to have some dominant games. We're not going to take that away from him, absolutely. But AJ Brown is not one of those guys where you just named, where it's like any given Sunday, AJ Brown's going to give you 200 yards and 11 plus targets, 2 touchdowns, whatever the case is. That's not his game. I don't think he's elite.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm right there with you. And like we said, we labeled off the names of the guys, and I actually think Davante Adams is a great take, because that's not a name that enough people bring up, but he's definitely somebody that is right in the mix there with being better than AJ Brown that not enough people probably talk about. Puka, obviously JSN. Is this crazy to say that this is kind of weird because I don't know how to phrase it. Like AJ Brown is the of this player. Like DK Metcalf, would you say he's like the? Would you say DK Metcalf is like the dollar store AJ Brown?
That's the way to put it.
I don't know how to put it where AJ Brown is the better version of DK Metcalf. Like what he's the. I don't know how to phrase it. AJ Brown is the. I don't know. He's not. It's like DK Metcalf is like kind of like the wall. He's like the Walmart AJ Brown. He's the guy. He's like the AJ Brown you get on the clearance rack.
Yeah, I'll probably put it. I'll probably put it that way. Yeah, DK Metcalf is. It's almost like the Five Guys and like McDonald's burger thing we used last week. It's kind of like that. Like
it's like and maybe this is too disrespectful to AJ Brown. Again, maybe I'm more of just a prisoner in the moment, and maybe it's also because they both went to Ole Miss, so that could be it too. Why I'm drawing a connection. They also too are kind of similar receivers in
very similar,
in the way that they. Now I think DK is like 6'4", AJ is like 6'1", so not quite in terms of size. They're not both like 6'4", but they're both bigger body receivers that are physical, very similar players. Yeah, I guess AJ Brown is probably a little bit more of an upgrade over Five Guys. What was our Five Guys debate last week? It was McDonald. Who was the McDonald's burger? I forget.
Don't even remember, but I know it.
I would say AJ Brown's. I would say DK would be McDonald's. AJ Brown would be In-N-Out because I think he's more of an upgrade over DK than just Five Guys. So he'd be like an In-N-Out burger. Have you had In-N-Out?
This is the way to put it. I have had In-N-Out.
Phenomenal.
Very good burger spot. I'm going to say that.
I think it's the best fast food burger spot out there.
1,000%. Last time I went to Dallas, I had In-N-Out like 2 or 3 times.
Yes. I love In-N-Out. I'm right there with you. So I think AJ Brown's In-N-Out, and DK would be like the McDonald's burger.
I might upgrade DK a little bit. I'll probably say
Five Guys.
A little more.
Yeah, that's true. Below Five Guys, better than McDonald's.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good take. Although Wendy's is tanking this year, though.
Wendy's has fell off.
They're tanking. They're tanking for the first overall pick. What is it? I think they're shutting down like some of their locations.
Yeah, Wendy's. Wendy's used to, when they were yellow box Wendy's, that was when it was peak. Like everything was yellow. The aesthetic was yellow. Now they have fallen off, and we're not gonna get that Wendy's back. So
I used to love Wendy's. Wendy's used to be underrated because it was McDonald's and Burger King.
Yeah.
And they were like the most talked about, but Wendy's was, much better.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Anyway, this is turned into Inside Wendy's. Either way, moving on. I guess quickly, landing spots for AJ Brown. I feel like we have to throw the Bills in the mix. Now, I will say this about the Bills. I don't love the fit because the relationship between Josh Allen and Diggs quickly fizzled out because Diggs kind of had a little bit of that diva mentality over time there. They started to not see eye to eye, and that forced Allen to force feed him the ball and all that stuff. So I actually don't know if the Bills are the greatest fit for A.J. Brown. Would you tend to agree with that, and any other names or other teams that could be on the market for A.J. Brown?
I don't like the Bills. I'm right there with you. I saw one where
New England.
I saw New England, and I'm just, don't do that to Drake May. It's if they were to bring Stephon Diggs, I don't know if he's a free agent, but if Diggs and AJ Brown are on the field at the same time, they're going to be 50 yards down the field. Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, while Drake May is literally scrambling in the backfield for his life. Don't do that to Drake May. But honestly, AJ Brown, I feel like he's going to opt for a contender. I just can't think of a contender right now that would want AJ Brown to come in that locker room. Not necessarily saying he is 100% of the problem and 100% of cancer, but that's a lot of ego to take on for a team that has a winning culture, and it's going to take some adjustment for AJ Brown.
Yeah, I think the Patriots are probably the front runners just because the Mike Vrabel connection.
Yeah.
The Bills, I guess the Chiefs, maybe the Chargers. You brought up the Chargers last week. They could potentially be a team. I don't know, man. I don't want to be that guy because we could go into this for a little while. What's the Jalen Hurts, Justin Hurts upgrade we're talking about? You know, it's like you go from playing with Jalen Hurts to Justin Herbert, right?
Is it? I mean, I know we're talking about regular season playoffs. I mean, regular season Justin Herbert. That's like we're talking about Pizza Hut to Domino's. I think Domino's is pretty good. It doesn't get the respect that it deserves.
So,
but sometimes when you need Domino's to be good, it's an upgrade. I think it's an upgrade.
Yeah, it's an upgrade.
So the comparison to that,
it's not a great upgrade.
No. So like, similar to Domino's and Justin Herbert, you ever have your stretch of Domino's where like this is probably the best pizza ever made.
Yes.
And then when you really need Domino's to be good, your order's not going to be correct and the food's going to be terrible. That's playoff Justin Herbert. But all year round, Jalen Hurts, it's Pizza Hut where you got the times. Pizza Hut's going to be okay. Pizza Hut is going to have a few good times. You're going to get it. You're going to be like, hey, they're back. They're not really back.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. We've shifted into the pizza game now. It's kind of funny. The whole Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts thing. Playoff Justin Herbert for AJ Brown versus regular season Jalen Hurts. You know that video of the two guys like flipping over each other?
Just flipping. That's it.
It's the same person. Playoff Justin Herbert and regular season Hurts, no upgrade. You might actually be a downgrade.
Honestly, because at least in the playoff, when it comes to the playoffs, at least for AJ Brown's side of it, you won't get the ball because your quarterback is typically getting obliterated in the backfield. Yeah. They're going to try to get you the ball. He's just getting hit every time they snap it.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, we can move on here. Edge rushers. We'll talk edge rushers here to close out the show. We'll get into trade, and we'll also get into some trade rumors, both with the Jets and the Giants edge rushers. Funny enough, both players selected in the 2022 NFL draft. So definitely some changes. We'll start, though, with the Jets. They traded away Jermaine Johnson to the Tennessee Titans for T'Vondre Sweat, the rare player-for-player trade in the NFL. This was a rare example for the Jets where patience actually paid off, because they had an opportunity with Jermaine to trade him at the deadline. You were probably only looking at a third or a fourth round pick for him, and they decided to stand pat. Now, the Niners, I know, were looking into Jermaine Johnson at the trade deadline, which is why it makes sense for him to go to Tennessee, because the Jets and Saleh, the connection there, obviously, at the time, Sam Fran with Saleh was making a push for him as the DC. Now Tennessee gets him. We talked about this a little bit off air. I think this is actually kind of a win-win for both sides, and I agree with the trade from the Jets' perspective. Jermaine Johnson just wasn't going to fit here anymore. This is a guy that, after last season, struggled, and with the Jets most likely switching over to a 3-4 defense, he just doesn't fit as that kind of stand-up outside linebacker type of pass rusher role. He's more of your 4-3 defensive end that could flip inside on passing downs, similar to a Ruben Bain, who, if the Jets were staying in a 4-3, Ruben Bain would make a ton of sense. But with them switching to a 3-4, that opens up the door for David Bailey or Arvell Reese. So I agree with the move. And then from the Titans' perspective, they get Jermaine Johnson. They get a pass rusher who had his best seasons under Robert Saleh. And T'Vondre Sweat wasn't going to work out in Tennessee. This is a guy who is more of a 3-4 interior defensive lineman. They weren't going to have a role for him. The Jets need a run stuffer. They got a run stuffer, so they got more beef in the interior of that defensive line, rather. So I think it's a good move for both sides. Robert Saleh reunites with Jermaine Johnson. Jermaine Johnson reunites with Saleh, who he had his best seasons under. T'Vondre Sweat wasn't going to have a role in Tennessee. Jets need run stuffer. They get a run stuffer. Jermaine was on the last year of his contract. He's older. T'Vondre Sweat is cheap. He's younger. They still got control for 2 years. So that's my thoughts. What are your thoughts on this trade?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I like it too. I mean, Jermaine Johnson was set to make $13.4 million this year, where T'Vondre Sweat's making $1.6 million against the cap for the Jets. So we're talking about almost $12 million you're saving right there. And you watched all Jets football. I watched some Jets football here and there. The run defense was awful.
Yeah.
And they were 28th in rushing yards per game. So you bring in this big body guy to plug up the middle, which is very important in the 3-4 defense, and they get that. So I like the move from both sides of it. Kind of just to reiterate what you said, Jermaine Johnson goes to Tennessee with Saleh, who fits better in that 4-3. You guys will be running a 3-4 this year, which Sweat fits that very well with that big body. So honestly, it's a great fit. I mean, this is a side. You said it's a win-win on both sides of it, and being patient in this case works out. So I believe they also got a second round pick for him as well, if I saw that correctly. So shout out the Jets for making that move. The only thing kind of relating to this, kind of not that I found alarming, just doing some notes on this, was they have now traded 8 of their 11 first round picks from 15 to 22.
Yeah,
that's insane.
No, 100%. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that is something that is very notable. And I was talking to somebody about this earlier this week, and I also put it up on my Jets podcast that I do. That's the one disappointing part of this trade. While I understand the trade and I like the trade, it's hard not to just it's not even like upset. It's just frustrating that we're here again with another draft pick that was brought in, was supposed to be a part of the turnaround. We looked at that 2022 draft class as like a key moment for the New York Jets, especially when they went out and got Rodgers after 2022. Sauce, Garrett won Rookie of the Year. Jermaine had the monster 2023 season. Breece Hall, prior to the ACL in that year, was on his way to Rookie of the Year. Like, you looked at that 2022 draft class. There's that photo of all 4 of them as the future of the Jets, the foundation of the Jets. Blue chip pieces for this franchise, offensively and defensively. Garrett and Breece on offense, Sauce and Jermaine on defense. That was supposed to be the turnaround. And it's very frustrating, because here we are again, and it's another draft pick that we're trading away. It's another draft pick that we didn't quite develop, didn't have success here. And that's very frustrating, because that's something that the Jets flat out suck at, is drafting and developing. So many times they draft guys and they're either not good, or they show flashes, or they're good and they let them walk. There's been times where that's happened as well. There's also been times where they then pay guys and they've been bad. So it's just very frustrating that, we're here again, where Jermaine Johnson, you looked at that 2022 draft class, Jermaine, Breece, Sauce, Garrett, they were supposed to be a part of the turnaround. Jermaine's gone, Sauce is gone, Breece is an unknown, Garrett's the only one left. It's just, if you showed somebody that picture in 2022 and said in 2026 all these, possibly 3 of these 4 players will be gone, you would have said no way. They didn't even finish out their contracts here. Especially Sauce. He won Rookie of the Year. He was an All-Pro twice. He was an elite player at his position for 2 years. And then all of a sudden he started to struggle, and they traded him after they extended him. So, yeah, it's very tough. And, I mean, Will McDonald's future is unknown. We'll see what happens with him. You go down the list of the bad quarterbacks. But that's been a big part of this drought, is drafting and not developing. If that makes sense. So, it's tough. Now on to Kayvon Thibodeau. You said you had some thoughts on him. I also have some thoughts on him. I don't know if it's the same thought process, The Kayvon Thibodeau is funny to me because to be honest, I think he's incredibly overrated amongst Giants fans. I think he's just a little overrated in general. I think a lot of people look at Kayvon Thibodeau and look him as this good. I think he's incredibly overrated. I think he's been that way his entire NFL career, but maybe that's just me. Whatever. And again, I know you got some thoughts, but Kayvon Thibodeau, it's so funny because I want to go back to the 2022 draft class for a second. This guy always talks down about the Jets. He even said last year's training camp after they had their joint practice, he was like, "Yeah, I went into the meeting with the Jets. I don't think I did very well because I didn't really care about the Jets. I didn't really want to go to the Jets, all that stuff." He says all of that nonsense. First of all, Sauce accomplished more here with the Jets than Kayvon Thibodeau ever has and probably ever will in this market. But to just crap on the Jets and then go out there and not let your play do the talking, not back it up with your play on the field, to me is just hilarious. This guy talks up such a big game. He's not even that good. He's not even the second best edge rusher on his team. If you were so good, why did they draft Abdul Carter? If you were so good, why did they trade for Brian Burns? To me, I just think to me, Kayvon Thibodeau is he has no self-awareness of, it's just me. I don't know. I don't like the guy at all, personally. I don't want to be mean. Maybe he's a nice guy. I just think he is an incredibly overrated football player. I don't think he's that good. And frankly, I just think the way he carries himself, you think the guy was a 4-time All-Pro. You think the guy was Myles Garrett level numbers. He talks a game like he's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate year in and year out. He's a perennial All-Pro. The guy's had 2.5 sacks last year. I mean, come on. I just think, I don't know. What are your thoughts on Kayvon Thibodeau? I know you had some thoughts. I don't know if they were good or bad, but your thoughts. I'm sorry to just hog in the airtime there, but I had to get that out because we don't talk much Kayvon Thibodeau here on the show. I don't talk much about Kayvon Thibodeau in general because there's really not much to talk about him. But in this instant where his future is unknown, Joe Shane basically said he's on the roster right now, which is not exactly a very ringing endorsement of a guy being here long term. He's playing under his 5th-year option, similar to Jermaine Johnson. It's in the last year of his contract. You're probably not working out a long-term deal with him. The floor is yours, though. I got my rant, my little Kayvon Thibodeau rant out.
Oh, well, I want it from your side of it. I wouldn't call it hogging the airtime. I would call it Wade to Braun throwing up the lob. Because I'm just going to pick up where you left off at. This guy was labeled generational coming out of college. Yeah. He was labeled as a generational player coming out of college. And he has been everything but that. I remember it just reminds me, when this guy came in the league, when he got drafted, and me and my dad were talking about, just what Dallas did that year, that obviously I think it's just kind of a normal thing. You always evaluate what teams in your division do as well. You're like, okay, what are we up against for the next few years? So me and my dad's talking about him coming out of college, and we're just like, oh, man, we're going to have some trouble with him. Like, it's, he's one of those players. He's very good. Our tackles are going to have issues. Dak Prescott's going to have issues. Does he even play when Dallas and the Giants play? Yeah. What does this guy do? I mean, he played 10 games this season that just passed. You threw out the 2.5, sacks, 9 QB hits. He's missed 12 games in the last 2 seasons, which, again, injuries, a player cannot control. So I don't want to blame the injuries on him. But just to continue where you're going, shut up if you're not on the field. You can't sit here and run your mouth and do all this talking, again, like you are an all-pro, if you don't play, if you aren't on the field enough. And when you are on the field, you're not impactful whatsoever. And you bring up the Abdul Carter pick. So from some side of it where, it's kind of like, yeah, nothing's wrong with that. Okay, we're going to draft another guy to help continue to boost the defensive line and boost the strength, which, by the way, that was supposed to be the strength of their team, was that defensive line. That has not happened. So You're bringing Abdul Carter, who I'm not even going to talk about him because the reports that came out of out of Giants, headquarters of what he was doing during meetings and whatnot says a lot. But you got Brian Burns, who you bring over. You draft Abdul Carter to be the Avengers of this team, and you guys stink. Your front seven stinks. Your organization stinks. Your GM, or Joe Shane, is horrible. If you go look at every draft class from 22 up until this point, and I don't know why that guy still has a job. We're just going to throw that out there right now. But if you are Kayvon Thibodeau, who is set to make, I believe it was 14.75 I saw, enjoy your 14.7 this year if you are in the Giants uniform. And next year, get ready to find a new realtor because you will not be playing for the Giants next year. This guy's done all this talk about this, and that to do absolutely nothing in the league. But that just goes to show Joe Shane masterclass, because this was his first draft class of guys, and basically everyone you drafted outside of Wan'Dale Robinson that year is absolutely terrible and has been the case moving forward. Outside of, you got your few here, Malik Neighbors, Tyrone Tracy, you got a few gems that has worked out. But I think that just talks to this organization as a whole. It's trashy.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I forget what the quote was because I was looking at it when he got drafted. I was just trying to find it just the last minute because right when you brought up the point of just how he's essentially been all bark, no bite. That's really what he's been in his career. He is talked. I always forget how this phrase goes. Talk the walk, didn't walk the talk. I always forget how it goes.
Talks the talk, but doesn't walk the walk. I think
that doesn't walk the walk. Whatever it is. All bark, no bite. That's the easiest. All bark, no bite. That's always the easiest one I always use. Either way, he said a lot of obviously stuff. What I was trying to find was, and I remember, and the minute it got drafted in, and you're spot on. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't bring that up. This guy was labeled as generational. This guy was labeled as elite coming out of college. This guy was labeled as the next big thing. Like, we're not talking about a third round pick in the 2023 or 2022 draft class. We're talking about a guy that people labeled as elite, that people labeled, like you said, as generational. That's what people talked about Kayvon Thibodeau. I remember it. Look, I like Kayvon Thibodeau coming out of college. I did. There was a lot of really good things I liked about him, to the point where the Jets either taking Sauce or Kayvon, I was on board with either. They ended up trading back in and getting Jermaine Johnson, which I thought was a shrewd move. Now, obviously, Jermaine's not here anymore, and it really doesn't matter in the long run. Neither is Sauce, so it's who cares. But you were the fifth overall pick. You were labeled as generational. You were supposed to come in here and be an elite player day one. And now, since you have came here, they went out and traded for Brian Burns. They went out and drafted Abdul Carter. I don't know necessarily if they make those moves, kind of look yourself in the mirror and make those moves if you were this great player, if you're as good as you think you are, because he thinks he's this great player. He thinks he's elite. And the quote I was trying to find was, when he got drafted here, I remember somebody asking about New York and the New York market, and he made some like cocky remark about New York and just how, like, oh, the bright lights of the city, something about like, oh, the bright lights, the city better be ready for me, or the bright lights better be ready for me, or something along the lines of like, big market, big city. I don't have to get ready for it. They've got to get ready for me. I'm coming here to dominate. And he's done just that because he's just so dominant. So that's another thing I'll add on to the Kayvon Thibodeau conversation with regards to the trade discussions and what happens. Do you think he gets dealt?
I think you have to. It's not going to work out. What this guy's going what? 5th year?
Yeah.
If it hasn't worked out yet, you might as well get rid of him because he's going to be expecting a decent contract in. He's making 14.7 this year. He's going to probably want 20s, 20, 24, somewhere, in that range. I think you move him. You take the thing, with pass rushers, which is kind of always a good thing. There's always going to be a market for them. Teams are always going to need pass rushers, whether that's to be a starter or that's to just be a depth piece. I think you deal them and you bring in, you get some draft picks. You got 2 guys that can fill in the role, and you try to fix Joe Shane's mistakes.
Yeah. Well, Joe Shane at this point's been essentially neutered. All of his power's just been taken away, which rightfully so, as it should.
If you see the draft classes, you'll understand why.
Yes, and the Kayvon Thibodeau pick being near the top of the list. Yeah. Anyway, any closing thoughts?
As usual, thank you guys for watching. Who did a lot of bashing today, but as usual, thank you guys for watching. We'll be back with more next week. Hopefully, some more news for those that missed out on any other thing throughout the league this week. George Pickens did receive the franchise tag, so George Pickens will be in a Cowboys uniform next year at the moment, but we will have some more for you, so thank you guys as usual.
Yes, and they restructured CD and Dak's contracts, I saw.
Dak, yes. They're making moves.
Yes. Jerry is awake. He has awoken. He's not sleeping through the offseason like in past years.
Fully awake this season. I mean, this offseason, I would say. He made a comment, something, self-awareness. I like to say self-awareness is very key. And he made a comment that was just like, it's been my fault that, we haven't had the success that we used to have in the 90s. Well, I am so glad 30-plus years later, you finally realize that you've been the problem. So it sounds like Jerry is indeed all in this time, like he claims he was 2 years ago. Yes. This might be the offseason.
I'll never forget when they just signed the long snapper. What offseason was that?
That was the biggest thing we did that offseason. It's like 3 years ago. Biggest move they made.
Anyway, that'll do it. Appreciate everybody for the support. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. As always, we'll be back next week. Stay tuned. We'll have some more free agency stuff coming out. Free agency will begin Monday, I believe, of next week. March 9th is kind of like the legal tampering. So looking forward to that. So a lot more content coming your way. Stay tuned. And until then, enjoy your week. Talk to you soon.